Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that Ted's decision to propose to Leslie after his divorce from Nicole is far from a simple twist. It is the culmination of a long, painful unraveling that begins months earlier, when Ted's failure to act costs him the very foundation of his life. Ted is a man who has built his reputation as a sharp and successful businessman, someone admired in boardrooms and envied in the corporate world. But behind closed doors he reveals himself as a man unable to confront conflict, unable to fight for what matters most. His flaw is not a lack of intelligence, nor a lack of opportunity. It is a paralyzing indecision, a refusal to make the hard choices when they matter, and that indecision sets into motion a chain of events that will reshape not only his life but the lives of every person orbiting around him. 3 months before the divorce papers are signed, Nicole, his wife, uncovers the shadow of Leslie in their marriage. She sees the inappropriate connection between her husband and another woman, a woman who is not only entangled in his personal life but tied to him through their daughter, Eva. Nicole does not explode in rage, nor does she make an immediate move to leave. Instead, she does something that reveals her enduring strength. She waits. She gives Ted time, 3 months of silence and hope, expecting that the man she once trusted, the man who promised to protect their family, will come to her and make it right. But Ted does nothing. He hides behind his silence, convinced perhaps that the storm will pass, that his refusal to engage will somehow erase the pain. It does not. And with every day he fails to reach for her, Nicole drifts further away. Nicole's disappointment grows into quiet resignation. She watches the man she married turn his back on their family not through betrayal alone, but through cowardice. She waits for even the smallest act of contrition, a gesture that would prove their marriage still matters. Instead, she finds herself alone, forced to confront the reality that Ted is unwilling or unable to fight for her. When she begins to confide in Carlton, Ted's business associate, the contrast becomes glaring. Carlton listens, he shows concern, and even though their connection is not born from passion but from compassion, Nicole realizes she feels more seen in his presence than she has in years of marriage. Ted sees them together, and still he does nothing. His indifference is louder than any confession. For Nicole, that silence is the final betrayal. The day Nicole files for divorce is not a moment of anger, but of clarity. She has waited, she has hoped, and Ted has given her nothing. The marriage is already dead, and the paperwork is just a formality to bury it. She looks at Ted not as a husband but as a stranger who chose fear over love. In her mind, the man she married no longer exists. Ted, shaken, finally realizes what he has lost, but his realization comes far too late. The moment to save his marriage has passed, and no granted gesture can undo the months of neglect. It is in this vulnerable, broken state that Leslie's truth surfaces. Peaches reveals a secret that alters everything. Leslie is not the woman Ted thought she was. She is the daughter of Vernon, the wealthiest and most powerful senator in town. Barbara, the woman whose name has lingered in whispers, is revealed to be Leslie's mother. What was once a hidden liaison and a scandal waiting to happen now transforms into a revelation of power and inheritance. Overnight, Leslie shifts from being a woman who once resorted to blackmailing Ted to survive, to becoming the heiress of Vernon's vast fortune and political clout. The balance of power tilts, and Ted, who once felt trapped by Leslie's demands, now sees an opportunity to align himself with her in a way that could secure his own future. Yet this revelation does not erase the destruction Leslie has already caused. Nicole's mother, Anita, carries her own torment, haunted by Barbara's death and the knowledge that the daughter of her late friend has grown into the very woman who shattered Nicole's marriage. The irony cuts deep. The threads of family, betrayal, and legacy are tangled beyond repair. For Anita, every glance at Leslie is a reminder of loss, both past and present. Ted stands at the center of this storm, having lost Nicole, his anchor and his partner, and now clinging desperately to the one person left, Leslie. But his proposal is not born of love. It is born of panic and calculation. He clings to Leslie because she is the mother of his child, and because she now embodies wealth and influence. He convinces himself that marrying Leslie is a way to rebuild his life, to salvage some form of family for Eva, but beneath the surface lurks a far more cynical truth. Ted wants the stability, the power, the shield that Leslie can now provide. What began as a weakness of character has now transformed into a dangerous bargain with ambition. Nicole, meanwhile, walks away not with another man but with her dignity. Her bond with Carlton is not about romance, but about survival. He becomes her confidant, the proof that kindness and support still exist. But Nicole's decision to leave is ultimately about reclaiming herself. She knows that staying in a marriage where she is unseen and unloved would be a slow death, and so she saves herself, even as it breaks her heart. Ted believes she leaves him for another man, but the truth is more damning: she leaves him because of who he is, and who he refuses to be. This is the irony that gives Beyond the Gates its haunting power. Ted thinks he can redefine himself by moving forward with Leslie. But what he is really doing is running away from the truth of his own failures. He has not learned to fight for love, only to grasp at power. Leslie sees this, and her growing suspicion gnaws at the fragile foundation of their relationship. She knows Ted's heart was never fully hers, and now that she stands as Vernon's daughter, she begins to wonder if his proposal is about loyalty or about her inheritance. Ted believes he has escaped the ruins of his past, but in reality, he is building a prison with gilded bars, one that will close around him as tightly as the iron gates of Vernon's estate. The image of Ted standing before those gates is more than symbolic. It is the physical manifestation of the choices he has made. Behind him lies the wreckage of a marriage he failed to protect. Ahead of him lies a future secured by wealth but poisoned by mistrust. He cannot return to Nicole, for that door has closed forever. He cannot fully embrace Leslie, for his heart remains conflicted and her suspicions will never allow her to trust him completely. The gates swing shut, and with them, the last remnants of the man Ted might have been. Every element of Ted's downfall is traced back to his hesitation. Had he chosen to fight for Nicole when she first confronted him, the story might have unfolded differently. Had he spoken, confessed, begged, or even raged, Nicole might have seen something worth salvaging. Instead, his silence answered for him. It told her that their love was no longer worth his effort, and that realization cut deeper than any affair ever could. When she turned to Carlton, it was not betrayal but self-preservation. She needed someone to remind her she mattered, and Ted had long since stopped doing that. In the wake of Nicole's departure, Ted's proposal to Leslie becomes a desperate attempt to rewrite the story. He tells himself it is for Eva, that a family bound by duty is better than no family at all, but deep down he knows it is about survival. He cannot bear to face the emptiness alone, so he clings to the one person left. Leslie, however, is no longer the vulnerable woman who once relied on Ted's weakness to manipulate him. She has ascended into power, into wealth, and now looks down on him with eyes sharpened by suspicion. She questions his motives, his loyalty, and even the paternity of Eva. In Leslie's world, nothing is certain, not even the truth of a child. The shifting dynamics between Ted, Leslie, and Nicole create a triangle not of passion but of survival, mistrust, and shattered illusions. Nicole chooses freedom, Leslie chooses power, and Ted, trapped between them, chooses cowardice dressed as pragmatism. The tragedy of his story is not that he loved the wrong woman, but that he never loved bravely at all. He mistook silence for strength, calculation for wisdom, and in the end, he is left with nothing real. Beyond the Gates teases these truths with every revelation, every confrontation, and every secret dragged into the light. It is not just the story of a man losing his wife, but of a man losing himself. The moment Nicole signs the divorce papers, the Ted she once knew is gone, and the man who remains is one who will barter his soul for a chance at relevance. His walk through Vernon's gates is not a triumph but a funeral march, the burial of a marriage, a love, and perhaps even his own identity. The gates do not open to freedom, but to a gilded prison from which there is no escape. What makes the unfolding drama so compelling is the way each character mirrors the others. Nicole, once patient and forgiving, Leslie, once desperate and manipulative, now rises as a woman of influence, no longer needing to cling to Ted but wary of the price of her inheritance. Ted, once powerful in business, is revealed as powerless in love, undone not by betrayal but by his inability to act when it mattered most. Each choice they make reverberates across the others, binding them in a web of consequences none of them can escape. And so, as the story pushes forward, the image of those gates lingers. They are the line between what was and what will never be again. Ted steps beyond them believing he has secured his place in a new world, but the truth is that he has sealed his fate. Nicole walks away into an uncertain future, but one where she holds the pen to write her own story. Leslie stands on the cusp of power, but with a partner whose devotion is forever in question. The stage is set for conflict, betrayal, and revelation still to come. And the question hangs heavy over all of them: can anything built on lies, silence, and mistrust ever truly last? Inside Vernon's estate, Ted begins to taste the life he thought he always wanted. Surrounded by the echoes of power, wealth, and prestige, he believes he has secured a place for himself and his daughter Eva. Yet, the halls of the mansion are not filled with warmth or security. They are heavy with suspicion, unspoken resentments, and the weight of secrets too dangerous to ignore. Leslie, once in a vulnerable position, now stands taller than ever, carrying herself as the daughter of a powerful senator and the heiress to a legacy that commands respect. Her eyes, however, reveal the truth. She is not entirely convinced of Ted's devotion. She wonders if his sudden proposal is less about love and more about what she has inherited. Ted attempts to bury his doubts and wear the mask of a dutiful fiancé. He speaks of family, of building a new future together for Eva, but his words ring hollow. Leslie knows it, and Anita, watching from the sidelines, feels it more than anyone. For Anita, the tangled irony cuts deep. She grieves for Barbara, whose daughter has grown into the very woman responsible for the collapse of Nicole's marriage. Anita cannot look at Leslie without remembering her own daughter's tears, her granddaughter's broken home, and the torment of a past that will never fully release her. Anita's sorrow turns into a quiet, simmering anger, and she vows silently that Ted will never truly escape the consequences of what he has done. Nicole, meanwhile, does not vanish from the story. She begins to rebuild, to seek solace not in another man, but in herself. Carlton remains close, offering support and stability, yet Nicole refuses to lean entirely on him. For too long, she defined herself through her marriage, through her role as Ted's wife, and now she must discover who she is beyond that. She carries pain, yes, but she also carries strength. Each day she learns to let go of the bitterness, to accept that leaving Ted was not an act of surrender but of survival. Still, questions linger. She wonders what kind of father Ted will be to Eva under Leslie's influence. She fears for her daughter's future, knowing Leslie's nature and Ted's weakness may combine to create an environment of deception and control. Leslie's transformation continues to shape the narrative. With Vernon's acknowledgement of her as his daughter, she steps into the world of politics and influence. No longer dependent on secrecy or manipulation, she wields her power openly. Yet the whispers remain: is Eva truly Ted's child? The uncertainty gnaws at Ted, even as he clings to the idea that Eva is the glue binding him and Leslie together. Leslie, in moments of cold calculation, allows the question to linger, perhaps as a way to test Ted's loyalty, perhaps as a weapon she knows she can use when the time is right. In the gilded halls of Vernon's estate, nothing is given freely, and love is often bartered like currency. Ted finds himself drawn deeper into a life he cannot control. What began as a desperate attempt to salvage his dignity turns into a slow entrapment. He attends political gatherings, social events, and dinners under Vernon's watchful eye. Each time, he feels smaller. A man who once commanded respect in his own world but now reduced to a shadow in another's. Leslie shines in these settings, captivating the powerful with her charm and newfound authority, while Ted struggles to fit the mold of her chosen partner. The more he tries, the more transparent his insecurities become. Nicole watches from a distance, hearing whispers of Ted's new life, and feels both sorrow and relief. She knows he has trapped himself in the very cage he mistook for salvation. Carlton's presence by her side is steady, not demanding, and together they form a quiet companionship that offers her peace. Nicole does not rush into a new romance, for she knows her healing must come first. She chooses, instead, to focus on Eva, determined to protect her daughter from the dysfunction that seems to follow Ted wherever he goes. Anita's pain intensifies as the threads of the past tighten. She cannot reconcile the fact that Barbara's child, Leslie, now thrives in the very home that cost Nicole her marriage. She fears history is repeating itself, with lies, betrayals, and broken families stitched into the fabric of their lives. Anita confronts Ted in a moment of raw honesty, telling him that while he may stand inside Vernon's estate, he has lost the only treasures that ever truly mattered: trust, love, and the bond of a family untainted by ambition. Ted listens but does not respond, for he has no answer. His silence, once again, betrays him. Leslie, now more calculating than ever, begins to see Ted not as an equal partner but as a liability. His indecision, his lack of conviction, and his growing insecurity do not match the image she wishes to project as Vernon's daughter. She begins to distance herself emotionally, even as she remains engaged to him publicly. Ted senses the shift, the coldness in her touch, the hesitation in her words, and it fills him with dread. He proposed to her to escape his failures, but now he is discovering that his escape has only led him into another kind of downfall. Eva becomes the quiet center of their conflict. She is the reason Ted clings to Leslie, the reason Nicole worries, and the reason Anita cannot let go of her resentment. The child becomes a symbol of everything they are fighting over: love, loyalty, power, and identity. Yet, for Eva herself, the world is confusing and heavy. She senses the tension, the unspoken battles, and she carries the burden of secrets she cannot yet understand. As time passes, Ted's illusion of control fades entirely. Leslie's ambitions outgrow him, Vernon's shadow looms larger, and Nicole's independence shines brighter. The contrast becomes unbearable. Ted realizes too late that by choosing Leslie, he did not secure stability, he secured a future built on mistrust and ambition. Nicole, by walking away, found freedom. Leslie, by embracing her lineage, found power. Ted, by clinging to both, found only emptiness. The image of the gates returns, a constant reminder of the choices made. They are not simply the entrance to Vernon's estate, but the symbol of the prison Ted has built for himself. He cannot go back to Nicole, for she has closed that chapter. He cannot fully hold on to Leslie, for her heart and her trust are beyond his reach. He is trapped, neither fully inside nor outside, forever standing at the threshold of a life that will never feel like his own. The question that lingers over every moment is whether Ted can ever redeem himself. Can a man who chose silence over action, calculation over love, ever find a way back to what truly matters? Or has he crossed a point of no return, forever bound to the mistakes he refused to confront? Nicole's strength suggests there is life beyond betrayal. Leslie's rise proves that secrets, once revealed, can transform destinies. Anita's pain reminds us that the past never stays buried. But Ted's path remains uncertain, marked by the haunting truth that the gates he once walked through will never open back to the world he lost. As the story unfolds, it is clear that the battles are no longer about who loves home, but about identity, legacy, and the cost of choices left unmade. Ted may stand at the center, but the women around him, Nicole, Leslie, and Anita, hold the true power to shape what comes next. Whether he learns from his failures or succumbs entirely to them will determine not only his fate, but the fate of everyone connected to him. And in the end, the greatest tragedy may not be losing Nicole or marrying Leslie, but realizing too late that the man he might have been was always just beyond his reach. The story that began with Ted's silence and Nicole's heartbreak now marches toward an inevitable end, one shaped not by sudden twists of fate but by the steady erosion of trust, loyalty, and love. As Ted stands deeper within Vernon's estate, the weight of his choices becomes undeniable. The life he once imagined, a marriage to Nicole, a family bound by devotion, is dissolved, leaving him trapped in an alliance with Leslie that feels less like salvation and more like a cage. He knows it, Leslie knows it, and even Eva, too young to understand but old enough to feel, senses that her world is built on a foundation of sand. The growing distance between Ted and Leslie can no longer be hidden behind polite smiles and staged appearances. At social gatherings, Leslie radiates confidence and ambition. Stepping fully into her role as Vernon's daughter, she moves through rooms with calculated grace, commanding attention with ease. Ted, meanwhile, lingers at her side like a shadow, a man once powerful in his own right now reduced to a supporting character in her story. The whispers grow louder. People question whether he belongs in this world, whether Leslie's engagement to him is an act of love or a temporary arrangement destined to crumble. Leslie's doubts harden into decisions. She begins to imagine a life without Ted, a future where her power is unchallenged and unencumbered by a man who brings more weakness than strength. Though she does not speak the words aloud, her actions betray her intentions. She withholds affection, excludes him from conversations with Vernon, and begins to consider alliances beyond Ted. Her gaze turns toward possibilities that would elevate her standing further, leaving Ted increasingly isolated. Nicole, meanwhile, discovers peace she once thought impossible. She rebuilds her sense of self, shaping a life no longer defined by the wreckage of her marriage. Carlton remains close, but Nicole's journey is not about romance. It is about resilience. She invests her energy in Eva, determined to shield her daughter from the toxic currents swirling around Ted and Leslie. Nicole becomes the steady ground, the safe place Eva longs for, a stark contrast to the instability of her father's world. Anita's anguish continues, but she channels it into resolve. She has watched her daughter suffer, her granddaughter struggle, and the legacy of Barbara twist into something unrecognizable. Anita refuses to stand by silently. She begins to confront both Ted and Leslie, unafraid to voice the truths others avoid. Her words cut sharply, exposing the hollowness of Ted's decisions and the ruthlessness of Leslie's ambitions. Though she cannot undo what has been done, Anita becomes a voice of conscience, reminding them all of the lives broken by their choices. For Ted, the final unraveling comes not with a dramatic revelation, but with a quiet realization. He stands before Vernon's gates once more, looking at the iron bars that once seemed to promise security but now symbolize imprisonment. The man who entered those gates believed he had found a way to salvage his future. The man who stands before them now knows he has lost everything that mattered. Nicole will not return. Leslie does not love him. Eva, though still his daughter, looks at him with confusion and distance. Even his business success, once his shield, now feels meaningless compared to the emptiness of his personal life. The ending is not a fiery explosion but a slow, suffocating silence. Ted becomes a ghost in Leslie's new world, tolerated but no longer cherished, present but irrelevant. His proposal to her, once an act of desperation, has chained him to a life where he is neither fully partner nor fully free. Leslie, poised to rise higher, carries him along only so long as it benefits her image. Anita's warnings echo in his mind, and Nicole's absence weighs heavier with each passing day. And yet, there remains the question of Eva. She is the only thread tying them all together, the innocent caught in the crossfire of ambition, regret, and betrayal. Her future hangs in the balance, shaped by the choices of those around her. Will she inherit Leslie's sharpness, Ted's weakness, or Nicole's strength? It is this uncertainty that lingers like a final chord unresolved, a reminder that while Ted's story may be one of loss, Eva's story has only just begun. The gates close one last time, their heavy clang reverberating in Ted's chest. Beyond them lies wealth, power, and the cold embrace of a woman who will never fully love him. Behind them lies the life he destroyed, the family he failed to protect, the love he let slip away. The man who once believed he could balance both has been reduced to a cautionary tale, a reminder that silence can be as destructive as betrayal, and that sometimes the worst prison is the one we build with our own choices. The conclusion is stark but inevitable. Ted's downfall is complete, and the world moves on without him. Nicole finds her freedom, Leslie her power, Anita her voice, and Eva her uncertain path. And Ted, standing forever at the threshold of what might have been, learns too late that the true gates he could never pass were the ones leading back to love, courage, and redemption.